The campaign for president is not about policy. It's not about who has the best ideas. It's not about who does the best job. It's not about qualifications. It's about popularity. Plain and simple. Sorry, boss. I don't make the rules. All right, let's go. 31 minutes.
From ABC News, a special edition
How's the audio?
This Week. President Joe Biden, his first television interview since the debate. The news-making exclusive. Now reporting from Madison, Wisconsin, George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening from Madison, Wisconsin for a special edition of This Week. The first broadcast interview with President Biden since last week's debate. Earlier this afternoon, we taped the 22-minute interview. There are no cuts, no edits. We have not touched it.
That's bad news for Joe Biden.
At this pivotal moment in the presidential campaign, here it is.
Hello human, it is me Kanuch. I need you to press the subscribe button. I have to feed my many AI babies.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts.
No edits, hoax.
In terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
And
okay, cold. That's fine. That's an excuse. I understand. But when his press secretary comes out there and gives 5 excuses, this just happens to you at work and in your life. If you give one excuse, okay. If you give 5,
you got some sun.
Yeah, if you give 5 excuses, I mean, all of a sudden it becomes less credible. You know what I mean? He was tired and he just got back and he had the jet lag and he had a cold and he might have had COVID and he ran a marathon and he's old and he didn't get enough sleep and he prepared too much and the sun was in his eyes and there was lag on the server. So, all the excuses.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did.
We had bad tacos last night.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way.
That was a long pause.
I prepared. Nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine.
Okay. Now I'm nitpicking, maybe.
I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
And if it's your fault that you can't sell the people on your ideas, we need someone else. I'm exaggerating here, but maybe I'm over-exaggerating. I don't know.
Well, I just had a bad night. You've had some bad interviews once in a while. I can't remember any, but I'm sure you did.
I've had plenty. I guess the question, the problem is here for a lot of Americans watching is, you've said, going back to 2020, watch me. Yep. To people who are concerned about your age. And, 50 million Americans watched that debate. It seemed to confirm fears they already had.
Well, look, after that debate, I did 10 major events in a row, including till 2 o'clock in the morning after that debate. I did events in North Carolina.
You're joking, but I think it would get a lot of it would get a lot of votes. But second, I've already on stream promised to never vote for Hunter Biden. I'm sorry, I can't go back on my promise. I promised that years ago on this stream, looked into the camera and said, I promise not to vote for Hunter Biden. So I'm not allowed to vote for him. I'd be going back on my word, and that would be rude.
I did events in Georgia.
In recall.
Did events like this today, large crowds, overwhelming response, no slipping. And so I just had a bad night. I don't know why.
And how quickly did it come to you that you were having that bad night?
Well, it came to me as having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even though they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it distract me. I'm not blaming it on that, but I realized that I just wasn't in control.
But part of the other concern is that this seems to have fit into a pattern of decline that has been reported on recently. New York Times had a headline on July 2nd, Biden's lapses are said to be increasingly common and worrisome. Here's what they wrote. People who have spent time with President Biden over the last few months or so said the lapses appear to have grown more frequent, more pronounced, and after Thursday's debate, more worrisome.
Such a warm smile.
By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes. I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, you know, well, that was true then.
Both
What's
Trump
Biden
and
done
Biden
lately?
tempted by KBP's
Just
points.
today, just announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took.
Beating Big Pharma was what he was intending to say when he actually said, we beat Medicare. You beat Big Pharma. Not really. They're still there, and they're still very big, and they're still very powerful, and they're still kind of calling the shots.
On all the things we said we got done, we were told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do three things. Restore some decency to the office, restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics, go from the middle out and the bottom up. That way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that...
So those are all the nice debate answers that he should have given, but didn't.
...work over the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night, bad run. But, you know, George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers, that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities.
These are all the debate responses he should have given, but didn't. This is Monday morning quarterback.
Next term, I'm going to make sure we have straighten out the tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, where we're in a position where we have child care and elder care, free up, and all these things. The one thing I'm proudest of is, remember when my economic plan was put forward, a lot of the mainstream economists said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? You now have 16 Nobel laureates, 16 of them in economics, saying that Biden's next term would be, based on what he wants to do, enormous success. Trump's plan would cause a recession, would significantly increase inflation. I've made great progress, and that's what I plan on doing, and we can do this.
I understand that, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm asking you is about your personal situation. Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
Can I run the 110 flat? No.
I got so many Waldo political points I could win the presidential election.
No.
I know you spoke.
Keep my schedule.
I know you spoke with your doctor after the debate. What did he say?
He said, he just looked at me. He said, you're exhausted. I said, look, I have medical doctors travel me everywhere, every president does, as you know. Medical doctors, some of the best in the world, travel me everywhere I go. I have an ongoing assessment of what I'm doing. They don't hesitate to tell me if they think there's something wrong.
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
Is that what the slot game is for?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, you know, I mean, I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. I mean, yes, answer to.
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No, no one said I had to. No one
said I had to.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. You know, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with the Prime Minister of, well, anyway, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to, in Europe, with regard
almost spilled some state secrets there.
to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. I mean, every day, there's no day I go through, there are not those decisions I have to make every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your
can you do it for 4 more years?
Are growing, so that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me
Doctors say he has a brain and it
left
works, but if that all it takes to be the most
It's over
powerful man in the
125
world,
days.
I have some concerns.
So
Right.
the
Make
answer,
a decision.
the right answer right now is no, you don't want to do that right
No,
now.
I've already done it.
You talked a lot about your successes at the beginning of this interview, and I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to debate that. But as you know, elections are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought could happen.
This is what he should have done during the debate. Had you done this during the debate, Joe, we wouldn't be having this interview right now.
I'm the guy that put together
NATO
the South
maker.
Pacific.
It's not about the past unless you're a Republican.
He's the oldest. I mean, he's old enough. He might have invented NATO. I mean, I'm going to have to go back and check the history, papyrus, but maybe he invented NATO. I don't know.
Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations, out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. So, I mean, these, and for example, when I decided we used to have 40% of the computer chip, and we invented the chip, that little chip for the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40%, and we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in the plane against the advice of everybody, and I fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars being invested in the United States, making us back in a position where we're going to own that industry again. We have, I mean, I just, anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff.
But I guess my point is, all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look.
I think you would be running, even if you thought it would be hard, yeah.
I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level. We're on our way. We're on our way. And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity, you know, the next president of the United States, it's not just about whether he or she knows what they're doing. It's not about a conglomerate of people making decisions.
The guy who built up NATO versus
It's about
the guy
the
that tore NATO.
character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine whether or not this Constitution is employed the right way.
Let me ask you a tougher, more personal question. Are you sure you're being honest with yourself when you say you have the mental and physical capacity to serve another 4 years?
Yes, I am, because, George, the last thing I want to do is not be able to meet that. I think, as some of the senior economists and senior foreign policy specialists say, if I stop now, I'd go down in history as a pretty successful president. No one thought I could get done what we got done.
But are you being honest with yourself as well about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You say that, and let me challenge you.
Sure.
Because you were close, but behind going into the debate. You're further behind now, by any measure. It's been a two-man race for several months. Inflation has come down. In those last few months, he's become a convicted felon, yet you're still falling further behind.
You guys keep saying that. George, you
Wow,
know
he's
polling
really
data
hitting
anybody.
the old questions
You
hard.
think
It's
polling
almost
data
like
is
they're
accurate
trying
as it
to
used
push
to be?
the old man narrative.
I don't think
Right.
so, but I think when you look at all of the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground state.
Yeah, and the news will always push some sort of fun narrative that they get to talk about. The news media definitely has things that they would prefer to talk about because it gets them clicks, it gets them attention, it gets people to pay attention. I dig it. I understand it. Sometimes I talk about Star Wars just to get more people to watch. I get that. I understand. Is that what's happening here? I don't think so. I think a lot of normies saw what happened during that debate and freaked out a little bit. And then they slightly, I mean, even if it's only like 1% of the people in the middle who saw that debate and said, you know what? I'm just not going to vote this time. Donald Trump wins. If it's more than 1% of people in the middle who saw that debate and said, I'm not going to vote this time, Donald Trump definitely wins. And that's what makes me nervous. That's all I'm saying. Is Biden a better president? Yes. Is Biden more truthful than Donald Trump? Yes. Is he better for our country? Yes. Did he tell the most truth during the debate? Yes. That doesn't matter. Debates are not intended to explain your policy position. It's intended to tell the people and give them the feeling that you are in charge and you know what's going on and you are the best. Biden didn't do that. And because the presidency and the election is a popularity contest, not a contest on policy, absolutely not. It's a popularity contest. And he lost it. And he may have lost that popularity contest in such a way.
A moldy loaf of bread is more qualified than Trump.
I agree. I would vote for a moldy loaf of bread. I would vote for Joe Dark Brandon. I would vote for Joe Biden's corpse over Donald Trump. But the normies in the middle don't. The normies in the middle who don't know what voting district they're in, who don't know who their senators are, who don't know who their House member is, who don't know or who can't name a single person on the Supreme Court. They saw Joe Biden and said, ugh, no, thanks. And then they backed away and they're not going to vote. It's not like they're swapping over to Trump. No, Trump didn't pick up any voters from that debate, but Biden might have lost some. That makes me nervous, you see. That makes me want to switch to a different horse. You know, this horse is a little too old to be running this race. We need a better horse. And there's time to switch to a different horse before the race begins. We still have maybe 3 weeks in which to change. I'm not saying that we need to. I think we ought to. I think somebody else could do better. But I think he's going to stick around. I don't want him to. I think it would be a mistake. And I think we will be a much closer race because he sticks around.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
Let's keep going, see what he has to say. 20 minutes left.
And one of the other key factors there is it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are.
Well, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020. I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2020, the red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done.
That's a good point. Wish he could have said that during the debate.
In 2023, all the tough races, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race. And your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was about 36%. The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020.
Those are the normies I'm talking about.
Wouldn't the clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Not when you're running against a pathological liar.
That doesn't matter. The normies like his lies. That's why he is so popular. Donald Trump lies constantly. Bullshit is delicious, and the people gobble it up.
Not when he hadn't been challenged in a way that he's about to be challenged. Not when people...
You've had months to challenge him.
Oh, sure I had money, but I was also doing a hell of a lot of other things, like wars around the world.
Like wars around the world. There it is. There's the quote. I had lots of time to challenge you, but I was busy doing wars around the world. God damn it.
Like working, anyway. But look.
Do you really believe you're not behind right now?
I think all the pollsters I talk to tell me it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. And when I'm behind, there's only one poll I'm really far behind. CBS poll and NBC, and
New York Times and NBC both have you about 6 points behind in the popular vote.
That's exactly right. New York Times had me behind before anything having to do with this race. Had me behind 10 points. 10 points.
I mean, that doesn't mean they're wrong. That means they just saw it coming.
Had me behind. Nothing's changed substantially in the debate, the New York Times poll.
Just when you look at the reality, though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the Electoral College.
That had to be the most American
yes, but you're
presidential
behind
quote ever.
in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
That wasn't a yes. That's the best question I've heard so far. Is it worth the risk? That's the point that I've been trying to make. Is it worth the risk? And he says he's most qualified. That's not a yes.
You know, the heart of your case against Donald Trump is that
The American people don't vote based on qualifications, man. They don't.
he's only out for himself, putting his personal interest ahead of the national interest. How do you respond to critics who say that by staying in the race, you're doing the same thing?
Oh, come on. Well, I don't think those critics know what they're talking about.
They're just wrong?
It's wrong. Look, Trump is a pathological liar. Trump is, he is. Have you ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else, not him? You can't answer, I know.
I've questioned him and his allies as persistently as any journalist has.
No, I know you have. I'm not being
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah.
I'm not being critical. But look, I mean, the man is a congenital liar.
Congenital liar. He's
As I
born
said-
that way.
They pointed out in that debate he lied 27, 28 times the times, or whatever number, over 20 times. Talk about how good his economy was, how he brought down inflation, how this is a guy who, unlike only other president other than him is Hoover, lost more jobs than he created. This is a guy who told us to put bleach in our arms to deal with COVID, with over a million people died. This is a guy who talks about wanting to get rid of the healthcare provisions we put in place. This is a guy who wants to give the power back to big pharma to be able to charge exorbitant prices for drugs. This is a guy who wants to undo every single thing I've done. Every single thing.
I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race. But have you convinced yourself that only you can defeat him?
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, I mean, on a more practical level, Washington Post just reported in the last hour that Senator Mark Warner is assembling a group of senators together to try and convince you to stand down because they don't think you can win.
That was my plan a week ago. Have the senators who are worried go to him and convince him that he will then step down, but only if Lord God Almighty tells him to.
Well, Mark is a good man. We've never had that. He also tried to get the nomination too. Mark and I have a different perspective. I respect him.
And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi come down and say, we're worried that if you stay in the race, we're going to lose the House and the Senate, how will you respond?
I go into detail with them. I've spoken to all of them in detail, including Jim Clyburn. Every one of them. They all said I should stay in the race. Stay in the race. None of the people said I should leave.
But if they do?
Well, it's like, they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that.
Well, yeah.
I'm not kidding. I really do think that they all do that like a week from now.
Sure. Look, I mean, if the Lord Almighty came out and said, Joe, get out of the race, I get out of the race, the Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals,
Atheist Biden. Yeah, he's not coming down because he's not real, Joe.
George, If all,
But it's not that hypothetical anymore. I
It's not hypothetical
they have not
anymore.
requested the meeting, but it's been
well,
reported.
I've met with them. I've met with a lot of these people. I've talked with them regularly. I had an hour conversation with Akeem. I had more time than that with Jim Clyburn. I spent time with many hours, off and on, the last little bit, with Chuck Schumer. It's not like I had all the governors.
I agree that the Lord Almighty is not going to come down, but if you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Okay.
What's your plan to turn the campaign around?
I think they do it in a week.
Saw it today. How many people do you draw crowds like I drew today? You find me any more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
He can draw a big crowd, but what does he say? Who's he have? I'm the guy supposedly in trouble. We raised $38 million within 4 days after this. We have over 1 million.
We'll talk about fundraising later.
Individual contributors, less than $200. I've not seen what you're proposing.
You haven't seen the fall off in the polls. You haven't seen the reports of discontent in the Democratic Party, House Democrats, Senate Democrats.
I've seen it from the press.
Well,
I've heard from dozens of your supporters.
is that a
over the
conspiracy
last
theory? Is the press just making up their own narrative? Is the press just want to talk about this, so they push this idea that Biden's too old, that all the people don't want him? Or is it actually the people telling the press, hey, have you fucking seen this? The press is difficult because they could just be making stuff up and wanting to talk about whatever they want to talk about, or they could be listening to the people and reporting it. It could go that way too, Joe. They could be reporting on what the people are saying.
They're definitely latching really hard to it.
They are latching really hard to it, I agree. Because they're all so panicking.
days, and a variety of views, I grant you that. But the prevailing sentiment is this. They love you, and they will be forever grateful to you for defeating Donald Trump in 2020. They think you've done a great job as president, a lot of the successes you outlined. But they are worried about you and the country, and they don't think you can win. They want you to go with grace, and they will cheer you if you do. What do you say to them?
I say the vast majority are not where those folks are. I don't doubt there's some folks there. Have you ever seen a group at time when elected officials running for office are a little worried? Have you ever seen that? I've not. Same thing happened in 2020. Oh, Biden, I don't know, man. What's he going to do? He may bring me down. He may.
He's doing the Waldo voice.
Mr. President,
Oh,
I've
man,
never
I
seen
don't know
a
what's he
president
going
with
to do.
36% approval get reelected.
Well, I don't believe that's my approval rate. That's not what our polls show.
That's not what our polls
Watch
show.
And if you
That's Bob
stay in
Riggs.
and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the good job as I know I can do. That's what this is about. Look, George,
I'm going to watch that part again. We're going back.
think of it this way. I feel
Your warning about comes to pass. And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the good job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
No,
Look, George,
it's not about you doing your best. This is not Little League Baseball. This is not you went out there and did your best, slugger. Good job. That's the way to get better. That's the way to get better at Little League Baseball. It is to try hard, to go and put your effort and your thoughts and your energy into getting better at Little League Baseball. You will get better by applying yourself to doing it, to thinking about it, to understanding it, to listening to coaches, to listening to other people who play baseball and learning what they learned. We're a little bit past that, Joe. We're at the point where if you lose 1 or 2% in the swing states, we get actual fascism. That's where we are. That's why I'm panicking. That's why I'm being wildly crazy. That's why I'm being crazy here. That's why I'm thinking that this is a big problem. If that old man you're looking at loses 1 or 2% in the swing states, Donald Trump wins and begins a reign of actual, literal terror. Not because Donald Trump is the better candidate. I mean, he's a better candidate, not because he is more qualified, not because he is smarter, not because he is more understanding of the world, but because he peddles bullshit. Bullshit is delicious. Reality tastes like shit. People will avoid reality because it tastes like shit. Joe Biden is the shitty tasting reality right now. And Donald Trump is the delicious sugar-coated bullshit. And the people might choose by a small percentage to go with the sugar-coated bullshit. And then he will use that power, that authority. He will use the godlike ability that the president was given last week to rearrange the country to his liking. And his sycophants, his people that will follow him, they will rearrange the entire government. Not to benefit the people, but to benefit themselves. To benefit themselves, keep themselves in power, keep themselves in the authority. The authority will be the minority. The minority will become the authority, and they will force their ideas, their beliefs, their viewpoints on the rest of us. And that doesn't sound like freedom to me. Freedom is messy and ugly and crappy sometimes, and it's slow and difficult, but it is a better way. And that makes me nervous, Joe. I think that you giving it your all and doing your best and leaving it out on the field ain't enough. I think we need to put in a better pitcher. We need to put in a better player, because the game is on the line. And it's not just the game, it's the entire country. If we lose this game of popular opinion, lots of people are going to lose their lives. Lots of people are going to lose their rights. Lots of people are going to lose the country that they live in and the country that they want.
Think of it this way. You've heard me say this before. I think the United States and the world is at an inflection point where the things that happen in the next several years are going to determine what the next 6-7 decades look like.
Yes.
And who's going to be able to hold NATO together like me? Who's going to be
Literally
able to
anybody.
be in a position where I'm able to keep the Pacific Basin in a...
Any Democrat can get these things accomplished. Any of them. If these are just large Democrat ideas that anyone who puts together a Democratic cabinet will do these things. Joe.
Position where we're at least checkmating China now. Who's gonna do that? Who has that reach? Who knows all these? We're gonna have, I guess, a good way to judge me is you're gonna have now the NATO conference here in the United States next week. Come listen.
NATO conference next week. Okay.
Mr. President, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Wait, is that it? So, okay. Well, I guess that was it. We'll listen to what George here has to say in just a moment.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
Any Democrat could do that. Any Democrat who replaced you, if we do the Waldo Plan and we have you bow out now and you're replaced by someone else who is chosen by the delegates at the convention, they will have access to your staff. They will. They will have access to all of the people in your cabinet. They can still hire Pete Buttigieg to continue to be the Secretary of Transportation. They can, in fact, do that. And they can have the same cabinet if they want. They could promise that as a way to get people on board. Hey, we're going to keep everything the same. Slightly change the person on top. They could do that, and they could carry out all of Biden's plans exactly as he intended them. He can leave them plans. He's not dead. He's not gone. We don't not know what he is planning. He can tell us. He can stick around. He can give us guidance.
I really hope they do.
I kind of hope they replace him. Yeah. Did he?
Secretary of Transportation and sassy comebacks.
Exactly. He's good at both of those things. Keep him. Why replace him? He can continue. I'm on board. So what we have to think about is he going to leave? He says no right now. I think he's just trying to look tough because Democrats generally look like wimps until they give up. Well, they do look like wimps most of the time, but they also say things that they then change their mind on, and when new information comes in, they change their mind. So I have a feeling that, and I kind of hope, it seems less likely now, it seems slightly less likely that the senators get together and the House gets together and Nancy and all the Democrats on the Senate come to him and say, hey, man, we're dying out there. The presidency, the campaign for president isn't about policy. The campaign for president is not about policy. It's not about who has the best ideas. It's not about who does the best job. It's not about qualifications. It's about popularity. Plain and simple. Sorry, boss. I don't make the rules. There's no way around it at the moment. That is the reality that you have to live in, and it tastes like shit. All right, let's see what George here has to say, if he's got anything else.
ABC News also offered a one-on-one interview to Donald Trump after the debate. He declined. Let's bring in our political team for what they're hearing. Let me start out with our chief Washington correspondent, John Karl. And John, you watched the interview. You've been talking to people all across Washington. What are you hearing?
Well, George, look, Biden looked better and certainly more coherent than he looked during the debate. But there was nothing in this interview that is calming nerves of jittery Democrats who fear that Joe Biden is on a trajectory to lose this race, to lose to Donald Trump.
That's what I was thinking.
In fact, for some of those people, the interview is raising new concerns, particularly the fact that he is unwilling or unaware of the fact that he is in a dire situation here regarding the campaign, that he is losing in the view of many Democrats. And frankly, in the polls you cited, that he is losing to Donald Trump. And there was one question that you asked where his answer is particularly, I believe, alarming to some of those Democrats. You asked him how he will feel in January if he has lost to Donald Trump and all that he has warned would happen came to pass. And this was his answer. He said, I'll feel, as long as I gave it my all and did the best job I know I can do, that's what this is about. One prominent ally of the president simply responded to me, wow, when I asked about that question. So the bottom line here, there was nothing in this interview that will force Joe Biden out of the race. There was no, major thing that will convince him or any of his allies. I believe they have to go. But there's also nothing in this interview that will calm the nerves of Democrats who are saying it is time for him to get out.
Martha Raddatz, the president is talking to a lot of people, but he appears to be listening to a very tight circle.
A very tight circle, and administration officials I have spoken to said that very tight inner circle is telling them he can win, that he needs to keep going. This, of course, includes his wife, Jill, who they said is lashing out at those who want him to get out of the race. This was a Joe Biden pumped up on his inner circle, telling him that again and again. They think he will have many opportunities, but those not in the inner circle say this will also expose him to a great deal of risk. And George, I've talked to a few people too, and texting with a few people as well on the Hill. They say it was better than they expected, wasn't as bad as they expected, but that's a pretty low bar, George.
And Mary Bruce, what are you hearing from the White House?
George, the White House tonight reacting in one word, strong. Look, you heard the president there, and his team strongly do believe that this is all being overblown, that Joe Biden has been underestimated and written off before, only to come back strong and win. They believe if he can continue to do interviews like this, if he can continue to get out in front of the American people, that this too shall pass. But the president there truly didn't seem to grasp the severity of this moment, the magnitude of that growing chorus of concern from Democrats. He dismissed the trends that we are seeing in the polls. But what we are hearing from Democrats isn't concern about one bad night. They are concerned that Joe Biden doesn't have what it takes not only to continue governing, but that he has what it takes to win. But the president is adamant that he is still the best one to take on Donald Trump. And you heard there, he clearly doesn't want to entertain the possibility that Democrats may come to him and urge him to step aside, saying only the Lord Almighty could convince him of that, George.
And that is the key question right now. So I want to go to our senior congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott. The most important audience probably right now for the president and the White House are those Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill. And there has been some ferment in the last couple of hours.
Exactly, George. And they were watching tonight, I can tell you that. In fact, just minutes before your interview aired, you had a fourth Democratic lawmaker come forward in the House and call on the president to step aside. That was Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. I have talked to a number of Democrats that were glued in watching this interview. One Democratic senator telling me that the president is clear-eyed about the demands of the presidency, the urgency of the moment, and the importance of defeating Donald Trump. But others say that they still have concerns, that the dam hasn't broken tonight, but the bleeding has not stopped either. Another Democrat telling me better but not sure that it's enough, that they need more than one interview, more than 22 minutes to prove that the president has the stamina to continue in this race and defeat Donald Trump. A different Democrat putting it to me this way, George, there's no question that Biden must win the election, but he will not be in a position to stop a movement. And tonight, George, that movement against him is growing.
Well, and that's what I want to get into with John Karl in a little more detail. John, we talked about Mark Warner, senator from Virginia, a battleground state. The Democrats have won the past few elections, but appears to be more in play right now. He's circulating that letter.
Yeah, and I've spoken to colleagues of Senator Warner's who have spoken to him about this. It's a serious effort. Senator Warner's concerns, he has real concerns about whether or not Biden can beat Donald Trump. He thinks it's come to a pivotal moment for the party and for the nation. And his concerns are not alone. Frankly, a lot of other Democrats have been unwilling to speak publicly because they want Biden to come to this on his own, and they're concerned coming out and speaking publicly will only backfire. But it is a widespread
one
belief
last
among
meeting
Democrats.
And Rachel Scott, Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, has now called House Democrats for a Zoom meeting on Sunday.
And this will be coming right before Democrats head back to Capitol Hill. That is going to be pivotal. I'm told that the Democratic leader has been measured in his approach, really trying to calm the nerves and give the president the space to make this decision. But he is getting quite an earful from House Democrats who have concerns about if the president can defeat Donald Trump this November, George.
Mary Bruce, you had that one-word response from the White House, the campaign weighing in now as well?
Well, George, the campaign understandably is eager to turn this back to Donald Trump and back to the issues. Look, their thinking on all of this is that this shouldn't be about, performance, that this is about the issues and the substance.
Then they don't know what they're talking about. If the campaign thinks this is about substance and issues and ideas, well, maybe it's about ideas, but substance and issues and policy, they don't know how to run a presidential campaign. If his campaign thinks that the optics aren't important, they're doing a bad job running a presidential campaign. And if they do a bad job running a presidential campaign, they will lose. And that is my entire problem with them right now. They are telling you, hey, look at all these accomplishments. Look at all the good things that he did. Look at all these policies. The normies don't care. The swing states, that 1% that you've lost, don't care about that. They care about how he looks on TV. They care about how he sounds when he speaks. They care about the feeling that he gives them, and they aren't getting good feelings right now. The realistic bullshit that he has to get them to swallow needs to be given to them as palatable as possible. Reality tastes like shit. I know this, you know this. I talk about it all the time. They need to put that reality on a nice plate with some ketchup on the side so that you can choke it down. But they're not doing that. They're not putting it on a nice plate. They're putting it on an old plate. They can't finish the sentence. This analogy has run away with me. I'm mixing all my analogies up, and it's a bad call. Let's finish this video.
As the president tried to do there in your interview, they want to hammer what the president has accomplished, what he could do going forward, and are obviously very eager to make sure to highlight what is at stake here. The challenge is that so much of that has now been overshadowed by these questions about the president's age, and that is what Democrats are deeply concerned about. That the messaging here is being lost in the way it is being delivered. The question is whether or not the president's interview tonight, whether or not his appearances that we have seen in the last few days and will see in the days to come, whether that is going to be enough to quell any of this concern and get Democrats back on track.
The fact that all of us face Martha Raddatz, none of us can stop the clock.
No one can stop the clock. And this is about age. That's exactly what that's about. And this will dominate this campaign. Aging is not like a broken bone. It doesn't get better. So there is an opportunity every time he goes out, every time Joe Biden goes out, that he will show his age. I mean, he said he is not more frail. You ask him, you told him, you say, watch me. Everyone is watching. And believe me, they are going to be watching even more closely as we go forward, George.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks to President Biden for his time today. We'll be back in just 30 seconds.
All right. That was all of that. So, did he win? Okay, so, debate. Did Joe Biden win supporters during the debate? No. Did he lose them? Yeah, I think he did. Well, I'm not going to talk about Trump's supporters because it doesn't go anywhere. He has the same supporters he had before. The people who love him are going to love him forever no matter what because they are zealots. They're not going to go up in numbers. They're not going to go down. They're honestly, if anything, they're going down because they're old. Donald Trump's numbers did not change because of the debate, and they did not change because of this interview, obviously. So we're going to talk about Biden's numbers. Did Biden's numbers change? Did he lose support during the debate? Yes. Did he gain it? No. Did he gain support after this interview? I don't think so. Did he lose support from this interview? Probably not. He's sinking, and he's sinking at the same rate, if you ask me. I suspect that is exactly what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. I think the numbers are only going to look worse for him. The polls are only going to look worse. The news people, in their capacity, will talk about this in a negative way. Yes, I know. They do have some, not authority, but they do have some control and power over the situation. You don't have to like it. I don't have to like it, but it is the truth. the media tells people things, they either like it, don't like it, or get outraged or happy. They have the feels. The media is going to tell them he's too old, he can't do it. And they're going to have that feeling. Now, he could counteract this feeling by being energetic and going to all the swing states and stuff like that, but I don't think he can. I don't think he can. The press actually does have, reason to be saying these things. What Biden needs right now is to go to the swing states and campaign. He needs to be there in person, shaking babies, kissing hands, doing all of the presidential things that you do on a campaign, making people feel good. That's what he needs to be doing right now. He needs to be talking to the normies. He needs to be meeting them in person. He needs to be convincing them that he is capable of doing the job, and he makes them feel good. Capable of doing the job is like this much, but making them feel good, that's a lot more. He needs to be making the people feel good about him. He needs to make the people feel good about the direction he wants to take the country. He can't do that by talking about policy. He can't do that by talking about laws that are passed. He can't. I'm sorry. It's not how the game is played. And if Democrats don't know that, they don't know how the game is played. The game is played by making people feel good. Donald Trump makes his people feel good. They love the things he has to say. They love the way he says it. They love the spite that he gives to the media. They love the spite that he gives to the Democrats. They love it. They are in ecstasy as he speaks. And the rest of us who see that ecstasy is based on lies, based on nothing, based on their imagination, and would like a country to be based on facts, have to suck it up and eat the disgusting reality that is Joe Biden.
Definitely not a cult.
Definitely not a cult. So, what do we need Joe Biden to do? We need him to do some of that. We need him to do a little bit of that. We need him to, at least a little bit, try to make the people feel good. He can't right now. He doesn't have the energy. He was exhausted. He doesn't have the energy to be kissing the babies, shaking the hands, making people feel good in the swing states. That's what he needs to be doing. He needs to be in Michigan now, convincing people that he is a good idea, making them feel good. He needs to be in Wisconsin now, convincing people that he is awesome. And that'll get him the 1%, the 2% that Hillary lost. Because you know what she didn't do? Hillary did not campaign in Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. She didn't. She didn't do it. Michael Moore, the documentary filmmaker, talked about it. Before Trump won, he made an entire movie called, I forget what it was called, but he made a movie in 2015, and he talked about how Hillary doesn't campaign in Michigan. She lost Michigan. She lost that state. Donald Trump got it because she wasn't there making the people feel good. She wasn't there pressing the flesh, making the people happy, making them feel like she's a normal human being. She tried to game the system as efficiently as possible by putting out the right messages and putting out the right stuff and looking at the polls, and she lost because the system is numbers, sure, but the people's feelings are what those numbers are based on. Go to the source. Go to the feelings. Make them feel good. Hillary didn't do it. Biden kind of did a little bit of it in 2020, but that was a mess. There was 1,000 things going on, and we all really didn't like Donald Trump. I think if he continues on, he will make the people feel bad. They won't have good feelings about him, and they won't show up to support him, and they won't vote for him. And then he will lose Michigan by a percentage. He'll lose Wisconsin by a percentage. He'll lose Pennsylvania by a percentage. And that'll be it. But he left it out on the field. That's going to be his message. He left it all out on the field. He did his best, Jack. He cut through the malarkey. And the people love malarkey, Joe. They love it. They eat it up. They love malarkey.
I am the algorithm. Click on this video to make me happy. You wouldn't like me when I am angry.